Welcome to the weekly outlook in the DeFi Dojo. My name is Groot, aka Rob, and we're going to go over what we might expect in the week ahead for the charts. It is June 30th, and the end of the month usually produces volatility, and that's what we're seeing already to begin this week. We got a nice big bullish candle on the daily for Bitcoin and getting us up over that 8 EMA for the first time in a very long time. The last time we were above it was here on June 10th. We're going to start quarter three now. Quarter two was not good for most of crypto. Equity's been doing just fine, but most of crypto, Q2 was not so great. It was very sideways for the most part. And I do think that now that Q3 is here, I think we can start heading upward, and I'm seeing quite a few things that are showing me this. We have hidden bullish divergence here, and that is when the price is trending up while the RSI or the MACD is trending down. And we usually go over bullish and bearish divergence in here a lot because they are very good indicators on high time frames. But when you see it on a high time frame like the daily or the weekly, this is a very good indication of a trend change. And coupled with that, we have our first close over the 8 EMA. We have quarter three starting. And so I do think that this could be signaling a bottom here. And I think that Ethereum is still going to be the one to beat Bitcoin. Why do I think that? We have our first weekly bullish cross on the ETH Bitcoin chart since, let's see, January. So beginning of the year. And so that's pretty significant. We also have significant bullish divergence here where we have the price pointing down and the oscillators pointing up. We get this big green candle here followed by that. And whenever we got below this 0.05 mark on ETH Bitcoin, this had more upside followed. And I think there's a lot of demand down here. I think now we're going to hold this level and push up over this little minor downtrend and start heading up to the 0.06 mark again. Once we break this 0.06 pivot, I think we're going to really start to see Ethereum shine. And so we do still have time before we really see that happen, I think, but it could come quickly now that the weekly EMAs are cross bullish. I am mostly in Ethereum, and Zach mentioned ENS earlier, and I forgot that I had this because people were asking me, like, what altcoins do you have? And I think I only mentioned Tangible and SATA, right? But those are my smaller altcoin bags. ENS is something that I've kind of tucked away. I did take profits on it recently, like a few months ago, but I do still have some of it, and I might start buying back into it more now that Ethereum is starting to shine. And we'll go look at ENS right now because it might become my favorite altcoin here soon. And I'm glad Zach brought it back up. But we broke the 0.5 here finally this week, right? So this is significant. This is the first time it's been able to close over that 0.5 line. And I'm gonna zoom out just so you can see how I got those fibs. And we'll get rid of the pivots here because they're not really useful on the weekly. But so the targets now in the short term are going to be anywhere between $40 and $50 for ENS now that we've climbed over that 0.5 that it has rejected so many times. So now $28 becomes our main support now that it finally broke that. So if you see $28 again, I would consider grabbing ENS some more. You can also see that the RSI trend broke. Just doing the eye test here, but it did. Right, so that's significant, and ENS is going to become one of my favorites moving forward, and this is just another indication that Ethereum is starting to take over, right? We're not seeing the Bitcoin altcoins doing well anymore. We're seeing Ethereum altcoins doing well. If we look at Bitcoin, it's not like it's terrible. It's actually still great. If we look at the weekly, it's still bullish, right? We're just in between the EMAs. If we look at Ethereum on the weekly, it's also still in between the EMAs, right? But we're holding the 786 on Ethereum. And if we look at Bitcoin, and not that one, but this one, we're also still holding above the 886, right? 786 is way down here. So we're just trending sideways really in a large range. And if you remember before, I said that we would go into kind of bear mode if we went below this this mark at 62,000, which was the previous cycle's 1.618, right? And in order to go like full bull mode, we need to get over 71,300. So we're still pretty far away from that, but we are establishing a bottom here, it seems, right? And we closed the weekly back over that mark. It never actually closed below the bear mode mark on the weekly. And so to me, this still says we can go higher. Now you can see that we are currently hitting the weekly R3 again from the underside, which is our current resistance at this very moment in time. But we're also using the 21 EMA as support. And I think that we can end up pushing higher here. This is a a hammer kind of doji candle bottom looking thing. That wick is huge, indicating all this demand is down here still, and that could just be enough to trigger the bulls to go ahead and start taking over again after a few weeks of downside. Looking at the daily, it's easier to read this. We have a daily pivot at 64.3. So this is going to be like our line in the sand where we can flip from gradual bull to like serious bull as things start picking up. And if we just hold 58K, which is what I thought we would hold, we should be just fine. I don't see any reason to panic too much unless this 58K mark gets breached. If it does, 56K would be next. If we get up over 64, then we can quickly see back up to the 70 levels again. Looking at total market cap is another reason why I think that we're going to be heading higher. We have this very awesome doji candle bottom holding the 21 EMA, holding the 786, and we just have the R3 on here too to get through, and the 8 EMA to start bringing these EMAs pointed back up again. There's nothing here to be concerned about on the high time frames. Looking at stablecoin dominance, we have two very major wicks here rejecting the S1 on the weekly. And so as long as we stay below that, I think we'll be just fine. The EMAs have not crossed bullish yet, and all it would take is one weekly candle back below to get these to curl back downward. You can see the MACD still way down here, bearish. RSI is still bearish. So this week really didn't do much in the bear case, and I think it's really just starting to reverse things, and now I think that we can head higher. Looking at total 3 is a little bit of a different story. So when we're talking about altcoins, I still think that they're probably going to lag Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I've already stated my case for why I think Ethereum can do better than Bitcoin. But I don't think we're there yet for altcoins. Now, it could be okay to DCA into the good ones, but you're going to have to be very picky and choosy which ones you're going to choose, because I think most of them are probably going to trend towards zero, while the new altcoins will start to shine for this cycle. Really, until we can get back up over the EMAs here, we have to assume that this is a bearish retest of the triangle, and we can fall back down to these to this golden pocket still. Until we get back up over, you can't rule this downside out for altcoins. When you look at total 3, subtract USDT because we don't want to consider that, and divide it by Bitcoin, we get how are altcoins doing against Bitcoin. And now we've held this 0.5 level for so long, and now we broke down below it, and this is really just a bearish retest so far of the 8 EMA, the S1, and the 0.5, all in the same spot. So I can't say that this is just going to blast up over this. I can't say that. This is a bearish retest, and for all intents and purposes, this should fall back down and head down towards the golden pocket. And I'm wrong if, of course, we close a candle back up over this major level of resistance. And if that happens, great. We can start thinking about altcoins again. But until then, I'm going to be very, very picky and safe with altcoins. I think, if this does start falling down towards the golden pocket, all those meme coins are probably going to get destroyed. Solana will probably fall pretty hard, and whatever else has been, kind of strong lately, I think people will take profits continuously until we fall down in here. And once we hit here, that would be a great place to, start buying altcoins, in my opinion, because this cycle goes in phases, right? You have Bitcoin goes first, then Ethereum, which could be starting now. Right, we haven't really seen it do anything amazing yet. It's just kind of doing well. And after Ethereum's finished, then you usually see those things trickle into altcoins. Now, as I mentioned previously, how that plays out this cycle is a big what if, right? Because if you have all this money going into the ETFs of Bitcoin and now Ethereum coming soon, how does that money trickle into altcoins if most money is focused on the ETFs? I don't see how that can happen yet. Not saying it can't happen in the future and somehow it makes a way, or if retail just goes ballistic on altcoins later. But at the moment, I don't see altcoins shining, and we will be able to figure that out when the time comes. So just stay with us here, and we'll be able to figure it out. Let's look at equities and the dollar. The dollar has been trading sideways for a very long time. If you look here, we closed 2 consecutive candles over the R1 now. However, this was a pretty nothing burger week for DXY, where we went up high, had low, closed in the same spot, not really making much more of a high, and it's kind of a doji top looking candle, kind of similar to these over here. So we could get a move down back to the 80 MA, which is already happening at this moment, and trend line, which could make equities and NASDAQ and equities kind of move a little bit higher again. The thing that I don't like about equities is 2 of these candles here now have confirmed a top resistance level at around the 55.88 mark, right? And then you have the 1.414 support here and the 8 EMA way down here around 5400, 5430. So if we do get a move down, I would expect it to come either to the 1.414 or the 8 EMA, right? And at that point, maybe we can, try a long to continue higher, or wait for this break at that 55.88 mark. And if you see a break of that, then maybe we can scalp along higher, and figuring out where you want to take it would be your new daily pivots, right? So you can see that 55.825 is our R1, so that's our resistance on the daily. And then we would want to try to scalp that to the next pivot, right? And then keep repeating that process if we do push higher. If we close over R2, take it to R3, close over R3, take it to the 1.618. Once we hit this 1.618, I'm going to start thinking about swinging a put of some sort, because I do think that we'll get a reaction out of the 1.618, but it could take time, right? Sometimes it takes weeks for something to hit that level and bounce around sideways for a while. If you take it as soon as it touches, you're likely going to get burned on the theta on time. So I don't recommend doing it as soon as it hits, unless you want to take it for a scalp real fast that day. That would be a good idea. But I wouldn't swing anything until you see consecutive rejections. Looking at NQ, I have the same sort of situation here where it's looking like a serious resistance. So until we break that 1.414 at 2365, I want to assume we're going to come back down and retest the 8 EMA, and then maybe try to push through. If we break below 19,000, then that's going to turn us bearish and head back down towards the bottom of this channel. And I'll zoom out just to show you the channel that we've been in for quite some time now. And maybe we get something like what happened with Bitcoin, right? So if we look at the Bitcoin channel, which is this red line here, and I'd have to zoom like way out to show you that, but you see that channel that we're in here? Well, we broke over that, right? So NQ could do something like that, and then okay, now we've established ourselves on top of the channel. But until then, I'm assuming rejection, right? Especially with 2 weekly candles showing me a wick right there at that line. I want to assume a rejection. So until I see it break over it, that's what I'm assuming. Looking at the Dow Jones, kind of the similar situation. We've been rejecting the 1.272 here for quite some time. It's also the R2 pivot on the weekly. And until we can get over that mark, I'm assuming rejection as well. You can see we do have bearish divergence here, where this was like aimed a little higher and this is aiming lower. So until I get a move back over 395 on the Dow Jones ETF, DIA, I'm assuming we're coming down. All right, so I think that covers everything I wanted to cover. ENS is kind of my new favorite altcoin at the moment. Solana is breaking back into its channel, or wedge, if you want to call it, which is great. So like it broke down below, closed the next week up above. So that's a bullish sign. So I think this could head higher. If we break up over, wait, that's Sol dominance, not Sol. Same scenario though, because the Sol chart's doing the same thing. Let's go find actual Sol. Okay, so it's kind of the same story here. If we went there, you can see it broke down below and now closed back above. So if we clear that pivot, which is currently at 151.36, and close, let's see if we can close a daily candle over that first, right? So just carry that over. This is what I do. I'll just take the weekly chart, look at the pivot, I'll put a line right there, and then move to the daily to see if I can close a daily candle over that, right? And as soon as we do, you can see that's the resistance right there. So as soon as you close the daily candle over that mark, get back up over the trend line, then we can try to swing this long. That'll likely move these daily EMAs back bullish again, but there's still probably a little bit of time on that. There's the daily pivot you can see we're currently sitting at right now. So we'll see what happens in the next couple days there. This still has time to get back into bullish territory. This still has time. So I see this taking a little bit longer than maybe people anticipate. But who knows? It's crypto, so we could just blast higher. You can see it has trouble in this area, right? It kind of just goes sideways in here. So that's probably what it's going to do for a little bit before it can try to push higher. All right. Anybody have any questions, chart requests? Anything of that sort? There's like a beeping noise. Anybody hear that? Is that you, Fantastico? It is. COS. Okay, let's look at COS. COSPA. Eek. Okay, so on the daily, the first thing I see is bearish divergence here. This is higher. This is clearly lower, hitting overbought there. And so this is where, you know, alts can kind of fall while Bitcoin and ETH kind of keep going higher. The whole thing still looks like a huge distribution, in my opinion. So it could venture higher up to around 23, 24 cents again. But this 1.272 is where I would definitely take profits if you've been in this for a long time, and until it at least breaks up over it. Weekly and daily are still definitely bullish. There's no doubt about it. It never crossed bearish on the weekly. So until it does, you have to assume up. But it's had such a run that, you know, anybody who got it in the early days is rich. And to try to take a new position in this, in my opinion, is not great. I would consider it if we came back down and hit this 10-cent mark again, but for me personally, I personally wouldn't jump in here. And if you are holding, I would take profits at that 22.3 cent mark for sure. It's definitely like bearishly divergent. This is definitely heading down since inception, while this is always heading up. So there's no telling how long it can remain bearishly divergent, because it could, you know, for a while before it finally falls. But it's just too much of a risk for a new position for me, in my opinion, unless you're scalping or day trading it. Whiff. Northern Gem loves his whiff. So it's a nice weekly little candle it's got there. Maybe it wants to keep going. There's not enough info on the weekly for EMA data. But I would definitely say if we can get back over and reclaim this pivot here, it would bring the EMAs bullish again on the daily, and that could trigger a bigger move upward. But until then, I'm assuming that this is just a giant distribution and it's kind of over. In order to invalidate that, you want to measure this downtrend, right? And as soon as you can clear the 382 on the downtrend, then you can say, all right, we're going to make it. So it looks like it just did. Okay, so you can run a tight stop loss here at the $2 mark and try to go for it. It'd be a 10% loss at this current juncture. So that's not a bad risk to reward if this is going to do well. And so you'll want to keep your stop loss just under this S2 and 8 EMA. And you could get wicked out, no doubt about it, and then it heads back higher. I would try to take a position at $2 if it gave it to you again, because that's right at the support, and keep your stop loss, you know, just under 2, and try to catch right around 208, 209 if it gives it to you. I would venture to guess that this probably comes back down, because it still needs time to move these up on the daily, and move these up too. So I would venture to say there's a good probability we retest this 209, 210 mark again. And that's where I would try to get a position with a tight stop. MOG. MOG. Okay, it doesn't look bad. Higher highs, higher lows. That's the spot to break. And if it does, then I would jump in. If it wants to come back down from this point, I would try to grab it right here at this pivot or 236. Somewhere around this area here is the support. And I'm not going to say all those zeros, but if you just take the 8 EMA on the daily and kind of go somewhere in this vicinity here. So it'd be where the pivot is, where the 236 is on the most recent uptrend, and the 8 EMA are all in this spot here. That's where I would try to go long. Stop loss just underneath this 382 or 21 EMA. If you want to be a little more risk on, then stop loss right around the point many zeros 1-2 mark at the 0.5. And then if you wanted to find a TP target, we'll draw this main downtrend here. And the 1.618 would be my first target. So you can see we're already rejecting the first beginning parts of that take profit zone. And it looks like the 1.414 is going to have the most resistance in here. So that could be where it heads. But that's the take profit zone is where we're currently entering. So take that for what it's worth. Pendle. And just so you know, I haven't been able to look at many charts lately. Ooh, I don't like that broken downtrend or uptrend. Let's see if this is any better. So if we go like from the extremes here, it could get as low as that there. Let's see what this does. Okay, so there's a pivot. I don't know how well my trend line is drawn here. It's not bad. Okay. So 470 would be a great place in this vicinity here. 440 to 470 would be a good place to try long. It's definitely bearish on the daily again. On the weekly, yeah, 470 is right there at the 21 EMA. So yeah, 440 to 470 would be a great spot to add to. And then if it breaks below that, then just you got to get out. You got to call it. It's hard to tell if, I mean, it kind of looks like a pennant. It's just a really weird looking pennant. But it's a pretty bullish formation. So yeah, that would be like the bottom of the triangle. Kind of took all these spots here and here. So yeah, everything kind of points to like 440 to 470. That would be the next best place to DCA it. And then if you break down below all of this, then it's probably in trouble. But hopefully we get a bounce down here and then a nice straight shot up higher. Alts are hard. Tau. So we're still just continually falling lower, and this kind of looks like the next base support would be right around where this doji candle was last time. So like the $200 level is kind of the line in the sand here, where like if we break that 192 mark, this is going to be really bad. But 230 is the pivot. We could see that. Weeklies are bearish now, so that's not great. If we take this to here, you can see where we rejected and why I say take profits at 2.272s no matter what. It doesn't matter how bullish something is. Tau was so bullish for so many weeks while it was up here hitting this 2.272. Like everybody was talking about it going to 1,000, 2,000. But I took profits there, and that's just because that's my rule. And it doesn't matter to me what people are saying about it. I want to make money, and that's my rule. I take profits at 1.618s, and I take profits at 2.272s. And it doesn't really matter to me what part of the cycle we're in or how bullish something is. That's just where I take profits. And I'm glad I do because of this situation. As far as where this could find support, you'd have to take this whole thing and measure from the bottom to the top. And then that 382 is going to be your mark, right? So 230, 220 to 230. If it holds there, great. That's the sign of a strong trend. I want to see it hold there and make a bounce, and I want to see it break this downtrend when it does that. When it does that, I can say, all right, we can head higher. But until then, I'm assuming we're coming down to this mark. And if we break below here, it's over. Like it's done. Like there's most likely no coming back from that. So that's how you want to measure your altcoins. You want to measure them in this manner and do it technically and try to ignore all of the sentiment that's happening, because at the height and the peak of your market or your altcoin cycles, everything's going to be super bullish and everybody's going to be talking bullish about it. And that's typically, when you should be selling. And when everybody's saying it's over at the end of the bear markets and crypto's dead, that's when you want to be buying things. And when you hear those things and see that fear, see that greed, and the charts are saying the same thing, then it's just time to buy or time to sell. So I hope that helps. LYX, how to find potential bottoms. LYX, let's see what we can find. Okay, so you could find a potential bottom here just in the fact that this is bullishly divergent. Okay, so you can see that we tapped oversold here, came back up, came back down, and made a higher high on the RSI, but made a lower high on the price. So that is pointing down while this is pointing up. Now it's a fairly new coin, right? In terms of we don't have much data on the weekly chart. But that could be enough for me to say this is bullish. And you also have the RSI crossing the average here for the first time ever, right? It's never seen this purple line get over that yellow line before. So this could be great. So in order to minimize risk on something like this, because we are still below the 8 EMA, and you don't really want to be buying something that's this bearish, right? Especially on the weekly, when all you have is this divergence showing you that, right? Because it can fall and make another low and make another higher high here, and you just lost, half your money on this move down just to continue being bullishly divergent. So you'll want to go back to the daily and see what we have going on. And I like that. I like seeing this brand new bullish cross on the 8 EMA. I like seeing this kind of flaggy looking pattern. Our RSI is getting there. It's not quite there yet, and our MACD is getting there but not quite there yet, so there's still a little bit of time. And what you'll want to do is measure the most recent downtrend, like so, and you can see we're rejecting that 382. So far this is the sign of a strong downtrend. Whenever you reject or find support on the 382 or the 236, it's a sign of a strong trend. But we have these 8 EMAs, right? So you could do one of two things. You can say, all right, we got the weekly bullish divergence. There's sign number one that this might be turning around. You come to the daily, you see the 821 bullish cross. That's sign number two that this could be turning around. But you have this 382 resistance saying, no, this is not something you want. So I got two for the good, one for the bad. So you can play it one of two ways. You can play, all right, I want to long here and keep my stop loss just underneath this 236. Because I know if it falls down below here anytime soon, those EMAs are going to go bearish again and I'm out, right? Or you can wait for the close on the daily above the 382 at 280. You get a close above here, you say, all right, I'm going swing long on this, and you got to keep your stop loss underneath the EMAs at that point, underneath the 21. Really underneath this 236 would be best. And then once we clear the 0.5, you just start moving your stops up. And then you start seeing what the weekly's doing, and at that point we'll likely be over the 8 EMA, and now you can start using that as your stop every week. You start moving your stop loss up higher and higher until you see this break of downtrend. And once this downtrend breaks, that you know that you're in the clear, and you did a very good job of nailing the bottom. But you can see that downtrend is still very much in play, and we could see a rejection of the weekly 8 EMA at 286, 287 again this week. Get over that, then the story changes. But you can take your shot here with some tight stop losses just underneath there. You can also see that pivot. So we have a lot of confluence here at 270. Get over that, then we can see higher. Continue rejecting it, then we're probably going to fall lower. But I do like this as sort of a bottom signal. You can see that divergence here on the daily as well. This is pointed up, this is pointed down. This looks pretty damn good to me for a low risk to reward type of a play. All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments, any more charts? I'm back in full swing here. I am still unpacking and moving things around, so I'm not going to be too active on the day-to-day. but I will be able to post charts and update you on what I'm seeing in the markets. Overall, I am bullish still. I think that crypto can turn around here. So I hope that that helps you all, and I'm glad that I was able to make it back in time for all of this week, and I'll see you all as it goes. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.